Good morning, everyone. Hope this finds you all well this morning. Today's passage is from Psalm 139, verses 23 to 24. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Have you ever done that? I mean, honestly and sincerely, ask the Lord to search you, to know your heart, to try you, and to know your thoughts, and see if there's any grievous, any wicked way, any sinful way in you, and then to lead you in the way everlasting, in the way of holiness and righteousness and godliness. Have you done that? I mean, I have quite a few times. You have to really want it. You have to really want. It's not just a saying, or quoting a scripture. It's asking God to open up our hearts and to look inside of us. I mean, He doesn't need it. He already knows what's there, but it's for our benefit. That the searching is for us to see what's lying in our hearts, and for Him then to try us and to know our thoughts, and then have Him show us what's in there, honestly, and we had to be prepared for that. We had to be prepared for whatever He might show us, and we have to be sincere about wanting those things out of our lives. Don't do it if you don't mean it, because then it's an exercise and it means nothing. This is for people who sincerely want to walk with the Lord, who sincerely want to obey the Lord in all ways and want to please the Lord, want to do what He wants us to do and to not do what is displeasing to Him. And it may not even be obvious things. Remember how David talked about, Lord, about his hidden faults, that the Lord would claim him innocent, which has to do with things that sometimes we are, I don't know, numb's not the word, but we are oblivious to things in our hearts, maybe because we've just kind of glossed over them at some point in time, and then we've just forgotten about it. Sometimes, have you ever been talking and you said something and you're like, wow, where'd that come from? You didn't know that was in there. It's because there are things in our hearts sometimes we know that they're there. Sometimes people know the things that are in their hearts, they just don't want to deal with them. That was my point. But sometimes we don't know, that things get buried, over time, and we forget, and or maybe we're unaware of it to begin with. And I know that there was a time in my life when I was really struggling with my faith, and uh, and and my actions were not pleasing to the Lord in all ways. And I was praying to the Lord one day, and I was trying to get all those things cleaned out of my heart, out of my life, so that I had a pure walk with the Lord. And I was reading this book, going through this book, and it suggested that you pray and ask the Lord to show you who you haven't forgiven. So I'm praying, and it says, Lord, is there anybody that I haven't forgiven? And the name He gave me was Jesus. And the thing is, I knew right away what He was talking about, because I had been abused as a child. The Lord did not rescue me physically from that. I have been abused by a lot of other people in my life. I have gone through a lot of hardships and persecutions and rejections and physical things, lots of physical things, but a lot of things in my life that the Lord allowed me to go through, and did not, rescue me physically. And I realized that I had unforgiveness, and I didn't know that. I had unforgiveness in my heart toward the Lord for not rescuing me from my dad, who was a severe abuser, and they didn't rescue me from a lot of these other situations. Because he says, we're going to be persecuted, we're going to go through hardships. Those are all things of the life of the Christian, and so I had to surrender that to the Lord, and what I had to do there was accept the sovereignty of God over my life. I think sometimes we can get bitter because we have these false expectations of God and of what the Christian life should be like and what Jesus is supposed to do for us. But he didn't promise us a rose garden. He promised us a life of suffering. He promised us a life of persecution, difficulties and trials and tribulations, that test our faith. But all those things are his disciplines in our lives to make us into the people he wants us to be. And until we realize that, we may struggle with what I'm talking about. That we have to come to that place where we accept God's sovereignty in our lives. When we accept that we were fearfully and wonderfully made by him, he put me in the womb of my mother. That means he put me in that house where he knew I was going to be abused, and in a lot of different ways. But he allowed it in my life because that was all part of him preparing me to be who I am today, to do the things that I do for him, to have these, video talks, So that was one of those times when I was searching the Lord, to know my heart. He showed me that I had that unforgiveness, but it wasn't just unforgiveness. It was accepting his sovereignty. When we don't accept his sovereignty over our lives, we can become bitter. So we have to watch out for that. But we have to accept that God brings sickness into our lives. He brings broken hearts into our lives. He brings people who are going to misuse us, falsely accuse us, treat us badly. All of those things he allows in our lives to make us and to mold us into the people that he wants us to be, that he can use then for his glory. So this is important that we do this. We should all do this periodically, especially if we find ourselves or we're struggling in our walks of faith, and maybe we don't feel as on fire for the Lord as we once did. Excuse me, that we should then sit down with the Lord and say, okay, Lord, what's going on? What's going on inside my heart? What's going on inside my life? Search me and know me. Try me and know my thoughts. Show me if there's a grievous way, like he showed me that I didn't forgive Jesus, And so I immediately forgave Jesus and I accepted his sovereignty over my life. But there was one other thing that happened that day. I had to realize, because I was abused, I was used to responding to the abuse like this, trying to not get hit. Knew I was going to get hit every time, but tried to block it out. Well, I was doing that with my fight against the enemy, Satan. I was doing this. I wasn't convinced that Jesus had won that battle for me. I was convinced that Satan still had power over me because of the things that happened to me in my life. It's logical, especially from the mind of a child, in fact, at one time, the Lord was telling me I needed to get back into a situation and fight it through, against some people who were against me, and no cause for it. They later apologized that they were wrong in how they treated me. But when the Lord was saying, get back in there and fight it through, and my response to the Lord was, but Lord, you don't understand. I really believed that. consciously, I would have not said that. I mean, I would have not said I believed that. Subconsciously, I did. That was in my heart. I really thought God couldn't handle my situation. But I had to learn that Jesus conquered death and hell and sin and Satan. That battle's already been won. We don't have to. We don't have to wonder who's going to win. Jesus already won. Satan already lost. So we have to put on the armor of God every day to fight off those attacks of Satan, where he's saying, I'm still the winner. He's not. He's already a defeated foe. So we have to live like we believe that he's a defeated foe. And when I made that change in my heart and my life, plus accepting God's sovereignty and forgiving Jesus, I tell you, my life turned around and it went positive forward direction, which has brought me into where I am today. So the encouragement today is periodically do this, especially if you're feeling a struggle in your heart and your life. Let God speak to you. Do it honestly. Do it sincerely. Let him show you what's in your heart. And then respond to him in faith. Do what he says, and it's going to change your life. I guarantee you. If you're honest, you're faithful, you do what he says, it'll transform you. Okay, that's the encouragement for today.